was diagnosed with autism and sensory integration disorder when he was young. When Aiden turned 8, he started having some episodes. I started getting calls from the school saying that they wanted to expel him, suspend him, and they said, we can't really support him. There aren't that many schools here that will willingly support a kid like Aiden. I was looking out of state. I didn't know. I truly did not know what I was going to do. I'll never forget them saying, we want Aiden. We want him. And that was the first time I felt hope.
The kids that come here because they need to be here in order to learn, and they need our approach. Our population is not made up of extremely wealthy people. They are depending on this money from the state in order to be able to afford our tuition, even with our low tuition costs. A lot of families that would not be able to be here if they did not have the state scholarship money helping go towards their tuition.
And I think if this option hadn't been here and I hadn't fought for it, and we had a lot of people fighting for us too, I'm not sure where we'd be today.
So if a face looks familiar to you, we have here Tiffany Pierce, that you saw in the video, Aiden's mom, and we're so grateful for, first we're grateful for you sharing your story, and we're grateful for you to come here today and talk with us today. And first of all, I guess, how's Aiden doing now?
He's great. He's happy, he's smiling. I didn't think he would smile again, honestly, before we found the school, and he smiles and laughs every day. Yeah. So I love it.
Awesome. So the video told a little bit about the story, but how did you find the school that Aiden's at now?
A whole lot of luck. I was looking out of state at this point. One of his therapists, who he had been seeing since he was 4, used to be the principal at Howard, and she was the principal, and Annie, who you saw in the video, Annie was one of the teachers at Howard. And so she and her husband founded CORE. They felt there was a need for a school like that, and Aiden's therapist, came to me and said, I think I have an option, something that may work for you. Because at that point, everyone had said, no, we don't want Aiden. We don't really have a spot for him. Yeah. And they did.
Yeah, awesome. So I think, with this, this is one of the many issues that we care about, and one of the many aspects of what we're talking about today is that, Cobb County Schools does a great job for many, many, many thousands of students. But there's some students where they just, and I think that's the message they communicated to you. We can't service Aiden like he needs, right?
We cannot support Aiden. Yeah, was what they said.
Yeah, and so that's what I think that's what we try to get across. That there's our schools service many students, kids with special needs. But some they just can't, and that's why Georgia has the SB 10, the Special Needs Scholarship bill that allows those options to be realized. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And as we go along, feel free to chime in. You're the one with real world experience. The rest of us have theoretical experience, on this issue. But also joining us on this panel today, we have Representative Will Wade, who's down here on the end. He represents District 9. He's from Dawsonville, home of some awesome Bill from Dawsonville. And now
That's
we have
right.
awesome Will from Dawsonville.
That's right. I feel at home. We're the home of moonshine, and I'm looking back and thinking, hey, I feel like I'm back at home. It's good.
But you're a freshman legislator.
That's right.
And in a minute, we'll talk about something you did as a freshman. It might be a little unusual as a freshman legislator, but we'll talk about that in a second. But also with us, we have Debbie Orr, who's the leader of school at Mill Springs Academy, which is a school that services kids with special needs, right? So,
Correct.
Yeah, awesome. So we thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And so I guess Denise will talk to you. Tell us a little more about your school, how it came to be, and what you do there on a day-to-day basis.
So Mill Springs Academy, we're celebrating our 40th year. We're located in Milton, Georgia. We are a private school that serves exclusively children with a diagnosed learning difference. We have about 275 students, grades K through 12, and I would say probably our niche is those children that have a dual diagnosis. About 75% of our students have an attention diagnosis, 25% are on the spectrum, 25% have language disorders such as dyslexia, and then the other 25%, which we're seeing a significant increase in, suffer from anxiety and depression.
Awesome. What are the circumstances that a family might decide to come to your school or put their child in your school?
Yeah, I want to preface everything I say. My daughter she is a lead teacher for special education in Gwinnett County Public Schools. So, we are strong supporters of public education, but the reality is there are limitations to that large system. And most of the families come to us, I use the expression battered and bruised. The children come to us broken, and we put them back together. Yeah. And I think one of the greatest differences is our class sizes are 6 to 8. So we know the child, we know the parent, and we can communicate a sense of love. And one of the things that I've always maintained is learning is all about taking a risk. And if you don't feel safe, you're not going to take that risk. Yeah. So creating an environment where the children feel safe is the first step towards a good education.
Yeah. So tell us what sort of success stories have you seen? Tell us some inspiring things about some of the kids whose lives you've seen changed.
Oh my gosh, the list is endless. Rather than specific stories, what I would tell you is I meet with every new family, and I would say the most common word that I hear is transformational. Transformational. We have children who refuse to come to school because they were so uncomfortable in the environment that they were in. We have children, unfortunately mostly boys, who misbehave.
I noticed she looked over here at me when she said that.
who misbehave because they're not understood.
Do you know my mom? No.
So, it's just a matter of taking the child, accepting them for who they are, and giving them the tools they need to be better.
Yeah, and I think, so maybe a school your size, do you think you have that kind of flexibility to do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that may not be present. You talked about a large system that can't necessarily be provide that kind of flexibility that you need. And Tiffany, if you want to talk to that too,
No, I'll tell you a situation I dealt with today. Perfect example. We have a young man who's on the spectrum, whose family's going through a horrible divorce. The children are being used as a pawn. The young man had, probably I would consider it to be an emotional break last week, decided to run away from school, which is not a good thing. We ended up calling the Milton police to find him. It was difficult, it was challenging, but my point is, we spent 3.5 hours with the family this morning.
Yeah.
When you have 275 kids, I can do that.
Yeah.
I've been in large schools, you don't have the time.
Yeah.
So we were able to meet, our guidance counselor, immediately after the child, we were able to get him the help that we needed. We have a wonderful network of professionals outside of the school that we can connect them to. And today we had what technically is called a reentry meeting. Yeah. And met with the young man, and we put a plan in place to help him find success.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tiffany, what,
Yeah, I think flexibility is key. When Aiden came out of the hospital, and even before that, he was in small group and special needs classes, in public school, and he thought he wasn't worth anything. He hated himself because he thought he was stupid. And regardless of what you tell him, he can see, and he can see, he compares himself to others, those types of things. And there was some flexibility with CORE, and I'll tell you, they came to the hospital to meet Aiden. They drove down from, at the time they were in Canton, they drove down to Atlanta. They met with him. We want him. And it started from there. But the first thing they said was, first, we need to show him that he's worth something. He needs to understand that he matters.
Yeah.
And until that happens, he's not going to be available mentally for school to learn anything. So that's what they did. Kind of brick by brick, to your point, building him back up so that he would be available to learn. And when he started CORE, he was in 3rd grade at that time. He was below kindergarten in every aspect. And it took time. But he's now in 8th grade, and he is on track. I mean, they work with him every day, one-on-one if they have to. And I'm just super proud.
Yeah,
super
absolutely.
Proud.
So, Representative Wade, as I mentioned, you're in your first term in the legislature.
That's right.
Prior to being in the legislature, I'm correct, you served on a school board.
I did.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what unfortunately, there's kind of this perception that you can either be for school choice or for public schools. And I think you're an interesting case because you're for both. And so maybe talk a little bit. You carried last year the expansion of the special needs scholarship program. When it came over it was a Senate bill, but you carried it in the House. Talk a little bit about the decision-making process you made to get to that point to say, not only am I for this, I want to carry that. Bill.
Well, let me give you one thing. So I want to share this as an observation. I was a school board member for 15 years in Dawson County. I was a product of that system, a son of 2 educators, both who had the ability to teach all children, whether they were deemed special needs or even that of gifted. And I watched my parents foster an environment for tailoring education to the child, not tailoring the child to an educational system. And the federal government over many years has had the idea, and I believe its genesis was very important, which was IDEA funding, the idea to make sure that we meet students' needs, especially those that are more challenging because they just have a specific need that not every child has. But the federal government also does what they do best, which is they mandate things, but they also don't fund them. And so that puts systems into a position of how can we maximize what we receive to do the most good for the most. But that leaves, like your young man, kind of in that, falls to the cracks. And for me, when I looked at this legislation, and I had folks that were friends with me. I was a former president of the Georgia School Board Association. And look, I believe in making sure that we take the systems that we have in the ecosystem of education and push for continuous improvement. One of those things, and I hope Misha will get to talk about this, I want to work with her on this, is to redefine even the term special needs to exceptional children. That's what we did in my community in Dawson County. We don't have a special needs program. We have an exceptional child program because every child has an incalculable value. And that's my passion is, as a school board member, a former chairman a few times, my phrase back in the early days, I was young, I was 26 when I was elected, chairman at 27. I said, let's make Dawson County where we keep kids first. Adult issues, you got to check them at the door. What is this going to do to the kid? Have the teachers tell us their thoughts. They're the ones that are with the kids. They have the best ideas. Administrators are great; they have skills, but ultimately they've stepped away from the classroom. I sleep with an educator every night. My wife's a teacher, and
I'm
so
glad you clarified that.
let me tell you.
Yeah. Not a different one, just your wife.
Yes. My wife, high school sweetheart, mind you, and it was inarticulate, so probably that was a part of my IEP back in the day. But ultimately, my point is I get to hear the feedback of that role and ensuring that we don't forget that public schools are designed to help a vast majority of students.
Yeah.
But I looked at this special needs bill and I said, we're talking about expanding this to the fragile few, those that have a specific need that ultimately a parent should have an option to find their best choice and their best option to meet that child's need at that time. And my hope is if you look at your son as a case, there may be a time in which, he wants to go back to Cobb and he's going to be able to fit right in, but he needed this as a stepping stone. Right, and that to me is why I carried it.
Yeah.
I did get some criticism from folks within the public school system that are focused primarily on the system. And look, some of them, that's their job, right? I respect that. But my goal as a legislator is to navigate the issues and try to find a solution where, as a Rotarian say, is it fair to all concerned, right? Can we find solutions that are going to make sure that parents and kids are at the center? And we're in an environment where I hope most folks wake up. This isn't partisan for me. Misha, she's in a different party, but we are very much in agreement on this issue where parents should be first. And it should be for the benefit of the child. And I don't even think we should do this just to benefit the parent. The child should be the focus. So that's why I was proud to carry it.
Yeah, well, we thank you for that. So has your perception of education, of the system changed since you've been in the legislature? You saw it, you saw the education system from one standpoint, and now you're in the legislature, which sets the rules, which provides the funding. Have you learned anything new? Has your perception of things changed at all?
I learn something every day. So I believe in the philosophy of lifelong learning, and being blessed to be in my community where I grew up and I got to experience a small town. I was sharing with one of your other panelists for the next panel that, as a freshman, there was 200 of us in my class. I graduated 4 years later, there were 96 of us. So, and that was in 1996. Some of them went on to work, some went to vocation, some went in the military, but some just gave up. They had that same feeling that your son did. And I see that the system as a whole has to continually be willing to take on constructive criticism from all parties, from parent groups, from Georgia Center for Opportunity, from, even let the public schools, let the GSBA, let the superintendent. Look, these are all people who have a passion to meet kids and serve them. Like you said, I'm not against public schools. I'm for kids. So let's make the public school delivery system better. Let's make it more accountable. Let parents have more transparency and let them have more say. To me, this is, not to quote Bush, but it's not rocket surgery, right? This is something that can be done if we're all engaged, right? I have a 5-year-old son. He loves that joke. So if he's the only one that ever laughs at it, that's good. So
I was laughing.
Buzz, I appreciate that.
Well, our time is short. I wish we could spend another half hour talking about this, but I appreciate y'all coming. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate your courage to be willing to take criticism. It's very easy, and I sat in your shoes. It's very easy to be more concerned about the next election than you are the next generation. Unfortunately, our political climate kind of lends itself to that, where that's what we want to do. And I appreciate Tiffany, you coming and sharing your story.
Amen.
So let's give a round of applause for our panel. All right.